You're listening to Double Time, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Steven Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey, Shaun Priest, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, sir? Still excited?
Yeah, so we watched the Apple event last night, of course, and it was interesting. I say last night, of course, depends where you are in the world. Could be middle of the night, could be first thing in the morning, could be middle of the day. For us, it was about 6 p.m. in the UK when we watched it. And yes, we did watch.
Breaking news.
We did watch the big announcement of Apple revealing new hardware, new toys.
Hooray!
We're going to get to the toys in a moment because, there's a lot to talk about. Of course, they did announce right off the top that there was going to be new AirPods, there was going to be new watches and new iPhones. Now, iPhones we knew about, had a bit of a debate with a few people about whether or not they'd be watches, and AirPods was kind of like a distant third. I mean, we kind of maybe thought there'd be something. There was talk of a budget line of AirPods, which I didn't really believe that Apple would do.
No.
I'm still not entirely convinced they have. So we'll get to that. But I want to kick off with the iPhone 16 because let's just dive into this because, look, iPhone 16 was, rumored. Everyone knows it's coming. Of course, we know there's a new iPhone every year. Of course, it's going to be the number that, the next number in line. That's generally how these things work.
Yes.
I'm very clever at this. I could do this professionally. This year, iPhone 16 came out.
What was, it's interesting, iPhone 16, but we weren't sure how this was going to go. What was going to be the differential here? What was going to make people who maybe got the iPhone 15 or 14 go, I want the iPhone 16. And do you think they brought anything to the table?
I think they've brought a couple of things to the table. So physically, the device is the same. It's not a huge difference in departure from the iPhone 15 range. I think that the key difference for most people is going to be the new colors. If you care about color...
Nobody cares.
Well, people do care. Look, we had
cares.
Carrie... Remember we had Carrie Morales on talking about the Google phones and she was all excited about the different colors.
Carrie cares. But nobody
Carrie
else cares.
That's a beautiful segment we should have on Double Tap, shouldn't we? Carrie cares. Shaun doesn't care. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't particularly mind either way about the colours. I kind of did like the sound of the blue one. My wife loved the sound of the pink one.
Okay.
I kind of wish they would do this in the Pro range as well because I feel like there's people who want to buy the Pro,
Stephen.
but they might want the colours. People do
Nobody
care.
cares.
I know you
Move
don't
on.
care.
Okay.
Anyway, for those who do care, it's available in various colours. We'll get to that a bit later, but in terms of the design itself, not a huge difference. There are a couple of things, though, that are different about the 16 range and the 16 Pro range as well. And it all kind of begins, I suppose, with Apple Intelligence, right? That's really where it all kicks off because Apple Intelligence is really what we were interested in, how these phones would play into Apple's intelligence offering. Here's a little video to kick off, kind of explaining about where we're at with Apple Intelligence as we move into the new iPhone 16 range.
Now, we're bringing together that personal context with the power of generative models to deliver intelligence that understands you. And we're doing it in a way that protects your privacy. Apple Intelligence is the personal intelligence system at the heart of the iPhone 16 lineup, with the ability to understand and create language, as well as images, and take action on your behalf to simplify daily tasks. And each of these powerful capabilities is grounded in your personal context. This is only possible thanks to our unique integration of hardware and software. Apple Intelligence draws on the immense power of our silicon to run multiple generative models on the iPhone in your pocket. These models are built by Apple and fine-tuned for your everyday iPhone experiences, and they adapt dynamically to your current activity.
So that's the sell, essentially. The sell of AI is that, with this new iPhone 16 range, you can access all these cool new features. It is important to say, though, if you have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, you will also get access to these features as well. So let's just not forget that in the mist here of all this news and announcement. Because, you might be forgiven for thinking that it's only the iPhone 16 you can get these features on. There are specific features of these phones that you will only get if you buy this phone. But in terms of the software, it is coming to iPhone 15 Pro. Whether it comes to earlier versions beyond that, I don't know. They sometimes do this. They sometimes roll out some of these features to other older devices.
I doubt it very
later,
much. They are going to be
agree.
pushing
I don't
that.
think it's Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Dividing line.
They need a reason for people to buy the new phone. They're talking about this whole. I saw them on a business channel the other day talking about, these phones really need to create a super cycle. There's been a real stagnation in iPhone sales, and Apple really need a way to try and encourage people to move on and buy these new phones. Now, there might be many people who've been holding off. They may have a 12 or a 13, maybe even an SE, and want to make the jump to a new device, which, of course, if you're moving from the SE, you're moving away from Touch ID to Face ID is really the big difference there. Of course, there's other benefits as well, but, essentially you're moving away in terms of that authentication method. So that if you've been kind of holding off, this might be a good time to do it. But I'm going to explain to you through the course of this hour my thoughts on this and why I think you should actually hold on a year.
Oh, really?
And maybe not make that jump immediately, but I'll get to that. So, yeah, I mean, look, in terms of AI, in terms of Apple Intelligence, and that's really at the heart of what this whole iPhone 16 announcement was, as you just heard there from Craig, this is a range of tools which are going to be useful in everyday life. This is not, all about, the stuff that ChatGPT talks about. This is not about, necessarily creating images or, going out there and doing, making a video out of a prompt. That's not really what Apple Intelligence is necessarily for initially.
This wasn't the sexy side of AI. Those demos that are there to blow you away, look how clever it is, or we are. This is, it's almost like toned down. When you hear writing tools or there is that image playground as well and summaries, you think, okay, it doesn't seem that impressive anymore. But I think this was aimed more at not, hey, look what AI can do. This is more how it can help us as end users. And when it comes to, creating summaries of a message thread in iMessage, for example, I would use that all the time. I want the summary of the important information that's in that thread, especially between you and me, Stephen. You know what tangents we go off on.
Oh, absolutely.
And say
I sent you an email address, right? I sent you an email address and, 15 messages back.
Yeah.
To be able to surface that email address by saying, what was that email address that Shaun sent me, for this guy or whatever, that would allow me to access that, because the amount of times I am going through my search history on my Mac of my messages to try and find information. If I can surface, and that can take minutes, sometimes even 10, 15 minutes to get to the answer, bearing in mind we're using VoiceOver, we're, navigating differently, so that slows us down. Getting that information quicker, being able to surface that with Apple Intelligence, that is what you might call not very sexy, and I agree, it's not very sexy, but it is useful.
Yes.
Really, really useful. Now, it's not just summarizing text. Of course, that's fantastic if you can get that. Summarizing notifications. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm using the screen curtain a lot these days. I try to keep the screen curtain on. It's not really because I'm having issues necessarily with the screen being on all the time and to do with VoiceOver. It's just a light-based issue for me. I have so many issues with the light. Yeah. So if I can turn that screen off and reduce the amount of light, the better. But when I do that, I kind of get this anxiety that comes with it, where I feel like suddenly I don't have any access to all these notifications anymore. Now, obviously, they're on screen. I can tap the screen. I can hear the notification. I can swipe through. Of course, that's all there. But when you leave your phone for a couple of hours, as we do when we're recording the show, because it takes like 5 hours to record this thing, when we go to record, I put my phone on silent. I put it out of the way. And when I come back to it, I am missing notifications. I am absolutely missing notifications, because I'll hear people say, oh, I sent you a message about this. Did you? Okay, so I end up doing this thing where I have to go through every app I can think of that I would get notifications on to make sure I haven't missed anything.
Yeah.
And if AI can summarize that or surface up to me what I need to know at that moment in a way that is much more intuitive than the current way, which is just a big list or groups of messages, I think that would be really good.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the screen curtain. I have mine on all the time anyway, because the screen's no good to me. But other than that, as you mentioned, I put my phone on mute all the time, and I always forget to take it off mute. So when we finish recording, I'll just grab my phone and stick it in my pocket, and I'm off. And of course, you miss every notification most of the time. So
mostly from me, yes.
Yes, that's my excuse. But the summary, as you mentioned, just could be really handy. Now, of course, it comes down to how it prioritizes what information is important and how well that works. We won't know until we actually test it. But the concept of it, I think, again, this isn't sexy AI, but this is just useful, working AI. and I'm quite excited by it.
I don't know what you consider to be sexy AI. What is sexy
Well,
AI
if
to you? That's a question, because I don't know the answer to
Well,
that
I'm
one.
talking about if you watch the OpenAI YouTube channel at all. And interestingly enough, I had a notification come through just as the Apple event was starting yesterday. OpenAI have just released a new video. I haven't seen it yet, but I thought, oh, that's interesting timing.
Okay.
But they have so many demos of, AI talking to each other and, the visual aspect of who walked into the room. There's just different features and demos that you see where you think, wow, that is amazing. That is futuristic.
Yeah.
And that is really cool as a concept and the potential of AI. Of course, we're not going to see that yet. We're still waiting for the visual aspect of ChatGPT 4 Omni. But that is coming. But that's what I'm talking about. But I mean, for me, I've got ChatGPT on my phone and just having a conversation with it, asking it how to do things rather than do a Google search. That is so cool and it's so useful. May not be sexy, but it's cool.
And there's writing tools coming as well. Now, again, this sounds a bit, but actually, this is cool stuff, right? And even I was kind of a bit yawny at first about it, but then I thought, actually, okay, let me think about this on a practical level. So I'm on my iPhone, I'm sending a text message to someone. Now, if it's you or I sending a message to each other, I don't personally mind, and you don't personally mind what garbage you get from that, because,
No.
To the most part, it's probably right. And if it reads right with voiceover, I know it'll read right to you in voiceover,
Yes.
so I don't worry about it so much. But if I'm sending that message to someone else that's professional, or, even if it's just someone I don't know particularly well, I don't want it to be, getting everything wrong, or, giving the wrong context, or, it's picked up a word wrong, or, whatever. I want to fix that. And writing tools can enable that. Now, how this will work in practice, we shall see. But I like this idea because it means I can almost trust my dictation a bit more, or at least... And I'm thinking about it almost like having a proofreader in your pocket, just having someone who can check what you've written, make sure the commas and the full stops are where they should be. All that kind of thing, just making the message and even changing the tone of the message. Of course, you can do that as well. I like all that.
Yeah.
And it means I can feel a bit more confident in the messages I send. That would apply to mail. I never send an email on my phone. Never. I
Really?
will write it. No, I never write an email. I'll read my emails, but I never write them. What I tend to do is if I really am in a position where I have to use my phone to respond to an email, I will get my Bluetooth keyboard out and I'll use that. But I will never do it with the on-screen keyboard. I'll use dictation.
Now you've pointed that out to me. You are absolutely correct.
And I don't trust dictation to do
Nor
it,
do
not
I.
an email.
Unless it's like someone I know, a casual email. I will just dictate as you say because they'll get the gist. It's fine. But there's lots of times where I get a notification in saying so-and-so has emailed you. I think, when I'm in front of the computer, I'll respond to that. And then
yes.
I totally forget. It's like,
I know.
Oh, God. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And, for me, it is just a time thing as well. Rather than say, if you're sending a message, for example, rather than dictate the entire message, being able to say something like, send a message telling them the time and the date and whatever else, and not having to worry about typing it out, dictating it and checking the spelling and things like that, knowing it's going to be done correctly, that's really useful, right?
I mean, I told you the other day about me using, because of my left hand and the essential tremor, I'm using the dictation on the Mac a lot more to send messages, especially long emails. I will dictate them on the Mac. Now, it's weird because I say I wouldn't use it and I wouldn't do this on the phone. So what would be the difference on the Mac, right? But actually on the Mac, again, I can take that text, I can throw it into ChatGPT, and I can do the things that I'm going to be able to do with macOS Sequoia down the line, with Apple Intelligence on the phone. This is going to be a game changer because it will be built in. I think it's the thing about the announcement of Apple Intelligence for me is about the integration factor. This is where Apple wins for me every single time. And, people who use Android will probably feel the same way with Google Gemini. They will feel the same way with it. The integration is going to be the key here. Being able to quickly get information, get access to the service, whatever it is you want to do. Rather than having to take that text and go off to another website or whatever, and then come back. And of course, then you're sharing that data as well, right? Again, it's the whole thing about with Apple, the privacy aspect. If you're going to use a third-party service like OpenAI, which of course they will allow you to do and make it easy for you to do, they will notify you that you're doing that. But you can also just not do that and use the whole thing and do the whole thing on device. I think this is really clever. I think it's brilliant.
I agree.
I will say Apple Intelligence is coming to the US in October. For the rest of us in Canada and in the UK and other territories, it will be available in localized English from December. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use it in October, but you'd have to switch your device to US English in order to access the feature. So you may want to do that, you may not want to do that. It's not a huge challenge to do it. But if you want to play with the features, that's how you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to set your phone to US English if you're outside of the US. If you want to wait, it's December, and that will be on the iPhone. We're talking here specifically about the iPhone, of course, because that was the product announced. Now, I mentioned, of course, the iPhone 16 is this new device with the new colors that you don't care about.
Yes, nobody cares.
But there are some other features on it that I do want to mention that are unique to the 16 in particular. Because you might remember that last year we saw on the iPhone 15 Pro and the Pro Max, they got what's called an action button. And that allows us to do lots of cool things, right? It allows us to essentially assign various things. It could be turning the flashlight on and off. It could be, doing what it's traditionally meant for, which is muting and unmuting. But now you have the option on the iPhone 16 range as well. Let's listen to Apple announce this feature on the iPhone 16.
iPhone 16 now has the customizable action button, allowing you to perform a variety of functions with just a press. You can record a voice memo, identify a song, or translate a phrase. You can also customize the action button with a shortcut, so it opens Calendar during the day and Flashlight at night. Or use it to directly access in-app functionality, like unlocking and locking your car with the Ford Pass app.
Now, it's that shortcut integration I think has got you excited most, because I know you love going into the shortcuts of specific apps as well. And you've been doing this already with the action button on the 15 Pro, right?
Yeah, I love the action button. Having a button that you can assign any function to or any action to is really useful. I use mine, as I mentioned earlier, I've got ChatGPT app installed, and I use my action button to do that. I press and hold it, and it starts a voice conversation, and I can ask it any question. But being able to change that to whatever you want is so powerful, especially in our case. If you want it to open Seeing AI or open Be My Eyes or whatever it is, those apps that you use every single day, the action button is actually fantastic, and I love it. And I love the fact that now accessible to more people, because it was just on the Pro range before, but now it's going to be everywhere. And I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So cool features, of course, coming to iPhone 16 and 16 Pro. So, we have that option, but it's not the only button that's coming to the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro. Yes, there's another one.
Let's start with a closer look at the camera control. It's designed for an amazing camera experience that brings you new ways to capture your photos quickly and easily. The camera control is easy to use in landscape or portrait. It's flush to the surface, covered by a sapphire crystal with a smooth texture and surrounded by a color-matched stainless steel trim. The camera control elegantly blends hardware and software. When you click, it launches the camera. And once in the camera, you don't need to adjust your grip to take a photo. Just click again, so you don't miss the moment. With a click and hold, you can do a quick video recording. The camera control is packed with innovation. A tactile switch enables the click experience. A high-precision force sensor interacts with the Taptic engine, ensuring responsive haptic feedback, like in a mechanical camera shutter. Additionally, a small multi-pixel capacitive sensor and signal processor under the sapphire crystal recognize touch gestures.
Oh, so Touch ID's back on the iPhone 16 then. Fantastic.
I got so excited. I thought it's going to be there. And no, it's not. This is not a fingerprint sensor at all. But it is interesting, right? Because I know a lot of people will be thinking, well, hang on, I can take a picture or take a video using the volume up or down buttons when I've got the camera app open anyway. So what's the difference? But the fact that this camera-specific button has a touch-sensitive area is actually really cool. Usually I don't care about photos or anything like that. I just dismiss them out of hand. Don't care. But the ability to swipe left and right on this button to go through the various options of the camera app actually could be very useful. I mean, people do, blind or visually impaired people, breaking news, do take photos. And this new way to access it and give it extra options, exposure and things like that. Actually, I think this is quite cool.
Yeah, and also bear in mind that whatever you're tapping on, whatever you're enabling on screen will be read aloud to you with voiceover. So, and again, this goes back to the heart of, I guess, what Apple is good at is, everything will be accessible. We kind of it's a given. Perhaps we get complacent about it sometimes, but I do feel that whenever I hear about a feature like this, I think, okay, maybe it's not something I would use, but I know it will be accessible to me if I ever did want to use it. That's important.
Yeah, but this is only one aspect of it because it does go deeper than that, which is far more exciting for me.
Yeah, let's talk about visual intelligence.
Visual intelligence is just a click away with iPhone 16's new camera control that Cayenne introduced earlier. Let me show you. Suppose you're out for a stroll and you stumble upon a restaurant you haven't been to before. Just click and hold the camera control and point your iPhone. With just a click, boom! Your iPhone instantly pulls up restaurant hours, ratings, and quick options to check out the menu or make a reservation. And you can learn more with just a tap. Awesome. And say you come across a flyer for an interesting event. Just click, and you can add it to your calendar. Details about the event title, time and date, and location are automatically entered for you. And then there's that cute little puppy you see at the park. What kind of dog is that? Click. And now you know.
Now, I mean, look, you can say, well, there's two things you could do there. If you meet a dog in a park, I'm assuming it will be attached to a human. You could ask the human rather than just randomly take a picture of someone's dog and say, oh, did you know your dog is? Yes, I did. I knew it was a dog and I could have told you this information had you asked.
I don't talk to people. I just talk to tech. I'm sorry.
But I mean, look, it's almost like a proof of concept thing here, right? It's like showing you what you can do with this. And, we're kind of thinking beyond here, aren't we? We're thinking visual intelligence is that, the Chat GPT 4 Omni thing that we were excited about, essentially being able to take a picture of something or even get a video of something and give a live response. Because I mean, look, this is the potential here to bring a lot of things together. From other services even and on Apple Intelligence. I mean, we are at the beginning of Apple Intelligence. It's really important to stress this. It's not like what you're getting today is it. I think there's a lot more to come.
I think they managed the expectations of Apple Intelligence really well with this one, with WWDC, and rightfully so actually, because they're talking to developers with that event and making developers aware of where what's going to happen. With this one, Apple Intelligence, I think, was running through its core because all these devices can run Apple Intelligence. But I thought they managed expectations a lot better, saying that, okay, these are the features you're going to get, initially, but we are going to roll out more and more features as time goes by. I think they were, as I say, managing expectations really well when it comes to this. But when it comes to visual intelligence, yeah, this sounds really cool. Now, I'm slightly nervous because you get a few examples there and you think, is that it? But with all Apple events, it's when you dig into it a little bit more. The one of the things was the ability to read menus with it. Simply take a picture of a menu and it will give you a summary or whatever. This basically becomes my menu button and my Be My Eyes button, because they also mentioned, and I hope I didn't hear this, mishear this, that they can assign this, or third-party apps can take advantage of this camera button.
Well, that's it, right? So it's the camera button. And look, we've already seen it there. They've just announced, essentially, that it has two functions. This might be a per-app situation. This might be a per... Yes. Because I'm thinking, hang on, if it's a camera control button and you press it and the camera's enacted, then how do you get visual intelligence to work? So I'm not quite sure how that will actually work in practice. Maybe it's about holding it down, or maybe
soft tap, double tap, who knows?
Something. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Again, there's going to be lots of options here with this, lots of things we can do. And if third-party providers can get access to this, and there's certainly no concern that they can. I mean, it seems like they can do that. That opens up a whole host of opportunities. I think next year's WWDC will see this go much further. And I would imagine there'll be some API kit made available two developers that we'll hear about next year for the camera control button.
And I'm sure
control, essentially.
I'm very interested to get into the accessibility settings and see if this is utilized anywhere else. I mean, who knows? As I said, there's so much more after an Apple event to dig into.
Well, that's right.
Why didn't you mention that? That's such
amazing
news.
One thing I've always wanted on the iPhone that kind of annoys me a little bit is the control, or more easier control of individual sounds or volumes. On Android, you have the benefit of having almost multiple volume controls for media, for ringtone, for voiceover or talkback in their case. And you do have that granular option pretty much from the volume button. You don't get that with the iPhone. You have to kind of almost wait till, say, voiceover's talking and then, change the volume, or, wait till the media's playing and change the volume, or wait till the phone call's happening and then change the volume. You have to wait for the action to be happening before it will actually action anything. And of course you can do this in the rotor, and I know that, and you can control it that way as well. But I just feel that they could use this button for many, many different tasks. So I think there's great potential here.
You just want a second action button.
I want two volume buttons. Yes, that's exactly it. Well, the fact you can slide up and down, that clearly suggests there's potential there.
We should talk about the actual physicalities of it. So you still have the volume up and down button on the left-hand side as you're looking at the phone. Above that, instead of the mute switch, the up and down mute switch that you used to have, you now have an action button. Where does the camera button come into it? I didn't actually see that or get a description.
So the camera button's on the right side of the device, almost where if you were holding your phone with your right hand, where your thumb would probably rest.
But that's where the side button is anyway. So is it below the...
Just below that, yes. So just below where the side button is.
Right, okay. And as they mentioned, it's flush, so it doesn't protrude like the side button, so you shouldn't get confused between that. But I'm sure.
Well, the impression I got was it was kind of indented almost on the side.
Yeah,
so you could feel almost like a fingerprint sensor, almost, but not.
Well, it makes sense. You don't want the camera going off every time you put your phone in your pocket.
Exactly.
Right? So it needs to be indented to some degree.
Also, bear in mind it is a taptic button, isn't it? So you wouldn't actually.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't go with that. I don't know what taptic means for the first thing. It's
isn't it essentially?
I just got my head around.
But isn't the whole thing with this that it's not actually a button? It just feels like it's
like
the Touch
like
ID on the iPhone 8. Remember the 8 or the 9 or whatever? What was it? The iPhone.
And people still don't believe
SE.
you when you say, actually, that's not a button.
It's not a button.
It's just
turn
a
your phone
surface
off and try pressing that button and watch what happens.
No, absolutely.
Nothing happens, and it's the weirdest thing in the world. It is so weird, but it does work really, really well, and they've obviously used that technology in here. Could have added Touch ID, but no, let's move on. Okay. So anyway, in colours, ultramarine, teal, pink, white, and black. So many, many different options. It's nice to see some colours back, I'll be honest, because I remember the days when as I found the other day, my iPhone 5C, I've got a pink and a blue one of those. Oh. And that was nice to have a bit of colour on there. I know you don't care. But in terms of pricing for these, we're talking iPhone 16 here. Canadian pricing starts at $1129. For the iPhone 16 and $1279 for the iPhone 16 Plus. US pricing starts at $799 for the iPhone 16 and $899 for the Plus, and in the UK $799 and $899 respectively. Now, there of course was not just the iPhone 16 announced, as you would expect. There was an iPhone 16 Pro that came along with it, and this is the one. I've got to be honest. I often think, as I've thought for many years, go for the Pro. The Pro's the one to go for.
Yes.
And this year, I struggled to find a reason. Now, there are reasons, and I will get into them, but I would struggle to find a reason to pay the kind of money they're asking for the 16 Pro, personally. Let's go through the details here. Now, in the iPhone 16, we got the A18 chip. It was originally the A16 in the previous edition. They've bumped that up now to the A18. What that means in practice, nobody really knows it. Because, when you look at the stats, it's like everything's faster and better.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So A18 on the 16 and the A18 Pro chip is in the 16 Pro. And what that enables is a better gaming capability. So if you want to play games on there, you can. And of course, the screen will be beautiful and gorgeous, especially on the Pro Max. Best cameras ever. Which they talk about the 48 megapixel camera, and there's telephoto lenses and ultra wide lenses and all kinds of stuff in there. Again, brilliant for I feel we're way past the conversation we used to have. I remember every time an iPhone came out, we'd say, I wonder what it'd be like with seeing AI, or how good will it be with OCR?
Does it improve OCR?
Honestly, we are so beyond that. It doesn't matter anymore. Any camera phone pretty much from the last 5 years will do you fine on all of that. So if that's a reason for buying a phone, it's a bad reason.
Yeah.
It also comes in new colors as well. Black titanium, you're going to get a theme here. White titanium, natural titanium, and desert titanium, which according to some people who've been putting this picture through ChatGPT says it's basically like a sandstorm on your phone.
Bronze,
sounds beautiful.
I heard it described as, or gold.
Bronze.
Who knows? It's all the same.
Okay. Well, I'm not color efficient, so I have no
Color
idea.
efficient. Okay.
I'm not color efficient. I've just come up with a whole new phrase.
Did
for
you
myself.
not want to say color blind there, Steve Scott? Is that not
I
allowed?
didn't want to use the word blind, no, because I'm obviously against it. So yes, 4 stunning finishes to go with it, of course. I'll be honest, here's the things I'm kind of interested in. Here are some of the values for me. I mean, okay, everyone's excited about the cameras, everyone's excited about the screen. That's the mainstream view, if I'm totally honest. And yes, I know low vision people, you're going to want all that stuff as well. I get it. But let's be honest about it. This is all an upgrade and improvement on last year, but it is a minimal upgrade since last year, to be perfectly honest. There are some things, though, that I do like. And one is the ability to record spatial video, but actually in turn, spatial audio. That is something that is kind of new to this, which I do like. Having the Meta Ray-Bans and being able to take video and have that video recorded in spatial audio. In other words, it's using the microphones on both sides of the glasses. I think that is an amazing feature. And, you know, when my wife and I came back from Canada earlier in the year, sitting back with the glasses on, watching back these videos, obviously I'm not watching the video, I'm just listening to the audio from them. Being able to hear that audio as if I'm back there again. So like actually as I was taking the video, the same sound is what I'm listening back to. It's like a time machine. It was incredible. And honestly, possibly the best thing about the Meta Ray-Bans. Now you can do this in the iPhone 16 Pro.
I totally agree with you. When I went away for the weekend, I did some recording in the bar, and there was an amazing sound system in there, and I was talking to Sarah, and you know, as I was panning around taking a video, it was, you know, the stereo effect, the spatial effect, absolutely amazing. And when you do listen back, it's like you're just right back there. You're absolutely right. And this sounds particularly useful on here as well. And they mentioned studio grade microphones on the Pros as well.
Yeah, they did. So, enhanced audio recording with better microphones, it says, providing clearer sound for podcast recording, interviews, personal audio recordings as well. I mean, I get all that because, of course, better microphones and studio grade is an interesting phrase. We've often said, you know, if you're starting a podcast, could you just use an iPhone? Now, I've said for years you can. Content is king, as far as I'm concerned. So it doesn't really matter what microphone you're using. He says, speaking into a Shure microphone, that's very good. But aside that, I would be interested in recording a show. I'd love to. You know, if you and I ever have the joy to have a 16 Pro, I'd love to record a show on the 16 and see if you noticed. Yeah, see what it sounds like. But bear in mind, it's a bit like all these videos that were produced. There was loads of videos that were on show at the event, showing off, the wonderful cameras and the capability of the cameras. Mm-hmm. If you think that those cameras are so good that they're able to create the kind of images that were on show during the event, you're kind of missing the point. And the point is excellent video editors and cinematographers who are holding those cameras.
Yes. Still takes some talent, right?
you might think you can take the same images, but I don't think you can. And with audio, it's a similar thing. Yes, good audio is, good recording is the key. Quality recording. But what you do with it beyond that, I mean, we don't just put the show out as we record it. We add a little bit of compression. We add a little bit of, enhancement to the audio because that's what we do. That's our job. That's what you do in broadcast. We have to level our audio. We have to make sure it's all nice level so that you're hearing a consistent sound through it. These things happen. So, what you could listen to a recording from an iPhone, but it's been compressed, it's been enhanced, and you will think that I'm sitting in front of a $5,000 microphone when in fact I'm sitting in front of an iPhone. But that's down to the tweaking.
And that's another thing with the Pros.
We'll see.
And I it wasn't clear to me if this was a Pro-only feature, but the using AI to enhance the audio as well, take away
Yeah.
background noises. There were 3 different options that it would give you. Was this in Voice Memos app, I believe?
No, so what you're talking about was in the camera app. So when you're recording, you can actually record video, and then you can choose essentially when that sound is obviously recording the sound at the same time. So you could say focus on the person in frame. You can focus on, I think the cinematic mode was kind of more a wide spectrum
That's
type
right.
recording. And essentially it's doing the full recording, and then it's processing it locally on the
It's
device.
very clever, though. I mean,
Very clever.
Yeah.
But you're right, Voice Memo's also got an upgrade as well. And you're basically getting... They demoed it with someone singing a song. They had their phone out. They were singing a song while they were, grabbing stuff around the kitchen. The music was playing from the phone itself. And it was able to record, even though it was hearing that audio, it was able to record her voice and then isolate her voice so that she could listen back to it and she could hear it with the music, without the music. And then she could use that track for whatever she was doing. Now, of course, that's in music, but we could use that in any situation. Can you imagine the potential here to be able to, record something like a lecture? And of course, there's people making lots of noise all around, and you can almost direct the sound to an individual.
Yeah.
Pick out that person's voice and say, this is who I want to listen to. I think that's a fantastic feature. Again, that will only be in the Pro. So spatial audio,
Right.
voice isolation, these are things that are coming to iPhone 16 Pro. They're calling them audio mixing tools, which is essentially what that is, but that will all be built into the Voice Memos app, which I think is really, really cool.
It basically becomes a multi-track recorder. So in that example, as you said, she was playing the guitar, recorded that track, and then, I don't know if she was, I believe she was, and then playing it back and then overlaying her vocals on top.
No, she was playing that audio from her phone.
She was, yes. That's
So
what
she was
I'm saying.
playing the track, and then she was singing along with it.
Yes, and the AI was able to remove that backing track
That's right.
and then, isolate her vocals. Very cool. Very cool.
Amazing. And I love that it's being done on device as well. So that's a very cool feature. Some people are paying a lot of money for these services right now to do this. And, I do feel or fear perhaps a lot of those services are going to disappear as a result of this because, essentially Apple will just do this on board. And look, Google Gemini or Google Android, I should say, are doing very similar on their devices as well. I mean, we remember the one with was it the baby crying or the baby? There was a baby that was removed from an image. I remember I got rather annoyed about this at the time because they took the baby's cry away or something. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I kind of feel, look, this is a different thing, right? Because I'm thinking about this from a professional point of view, from what we do as a job. But if I was thinking about this from a home perspective, if I was, recording a video at home or recording a video of my family, I want to hear those noises around. I don't want to be deleting all that stuff. I think there's an ethical question here around all that.
Oh, come on. Yeah, but this is all optional.
Like
you don't have to, delete people out of your
take the feature
audio.
away. Disable it. I don't want to hear about it.
But the
yes.
point is, though, is an interesting one because I remember as we were watching, you said, you know what, I think I would just go with the 16, the entry level iPhone 16, as you mentioned.
Yeah, look, of course there are values in all of these functionalities. And, when I think about it, I think, they're all great. I just don't know if it's worth the extra money. I'm also intrigued to know if this is purely iPhone 16 Pro or whether the iPhone 15 Pro might get some of these functions. This is what I'm interested in. Let's see what happens when iOS 18 is out. But I feel iOS 18 is going to be much more staggered this year. It used to be the case that iOS 18 would come out and then you'd have patches and fixes along the way. Mm-hmm. But now, of course, we're hearing, Apple are going to announce iOS 18. It's going to be launched on September 16th, along with all the other OSs. They'll come out on 16th of September, which is great. But then there'll be an 18.1 release of iOS, and that will include Apple Intelligence in October in the US, and then, of course, later in December for the rest of us outside of the US, or at least for certain territories, including the Canada and the UK. Yeah. But look, there's another feature, of course, inside the iPhone 16 Pro, which was in the 15 Pro and earlier, which a lot of people didn't hear much about at all this time around, and that was the LiDAR sensor. We didn't hear anything about that. And of course, think about door detection, people detection, the point and speak feature. These are all requirements of LiDAR or requiring LiDAR in order to function. But no mention of it at all. So I guess nothing new coming.
I was hoping that would go across the range, to be honest. I thought it's about time this
it's an
trickled
expensive
down.
sensor, though. I think that's the problem, and I don't think they see the value in putting it into the. I suppose they have to differentiate somewhere, and I would say perhaps this year there are certainly more features when you think about the spatial audio recording. When you think about the LiDAR, there's becoming more reasons to kind of consider one over the other. Whereas before it was pretty much you could just go for the other. You could go for the 15. A lot of blind people do tend to go down the Pro route because of that LiDAR sensor. I think a lot who you record audio and use their phone for recording audio might see value in perhaps going down the Pro route. Those of us who edit professional audio probably just use a regular iPhone, right? Because we know how to deal with the audio, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to spend extra money to record audio. I could record on a Victor Reader stream, and it's about what you can do with it later for me.
I'm interested because I didn't actually notice this. Is USB-C across the range as well?
Oh yes, yeah.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
Cool. So this is definitely a reset generation, right?
That was the case with the 15, wasn't it? The 15's US as well, USB as well.
all of it. I thought it was.
It's absolutely certain it was. Yeah.
Do you know what? You're probably right. No. I think the Pro was USB-C only. Oh no, I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think
You know what it is? I was
USB-C.
charging. I took when we went away. I took away the. Have you got things to charge our phones? Yeah, no problem. I just took USB-C. Sarah's got an iPhone 14, of course. Oh no, I forgot Lightning cable. Yeah.
So in terms of pricing, I'll just quickly mention this before we move on. Canadian pricing, $1,449 for the 16 Pro and $1,749 for the 16 Pro Max. In the US, it's $999 for the 16 Pro, $1,199 for the Pro Max. And the UK, it's $999 for 16 Pro and $1,199 for the Pro Max. Let's move on and talk about AirPods, because we did get new AirPods, not AirPods Pro. We'll get to that in a minute, but AirPods 4 were announced. Improved audio quality, well, they would say that. Better audio quality, apparently, than the standard AirPods, or at least the previous generation, which they say brings high-quality sound to a more affordable price range. We'll talk about price in a minute. There's also another option, and I find this, maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I'm getting old and getting cynical, but they've brought out a second version of the AirPods Pro 4, funnily enough, a little bit more expensive, with active noise cancellation capabilities. So similar design, that sort of, sits in your ear, not on, or sits on your ear, I suppose you should say, compared to the AirPods Pro 2 that actually go in your ear. They've got the ear tips on them. Yeah. These don't. So the more traditional, the more the classic design. Yeah. They're really nice. I feel the one thing, I love the AirPods Pro, and I always have loved the AirPods Pro 2 since I got them. I think they are the best. I mean, when Apple say they're the best, I actually, for once, agree with 100% what they say, because I think they're excellent sound, excellent audio. The active noise cancellation is brilliant. And funnily enough, when I go back to my AirPods 3, I kind of get irritated by the external noise. I don't have any control over it. So it's like, I'm hearing external noise whilst I'm trying to listen to something.
Yeah.
I think it's fine when you're out and about or you're only using them in one ear. But I would probably go down the route if you really want the option of, good quality audio and also the ability for active noise cancellation. I would look at the Pro 2, and there's another reason for that we'll get to. But anyway, on the AirPods 4, this second version, you can get enhanced noise cancellation and voice isolation as well. Now, what that means is that as you're walking down the street and say there's a brass band passes you by, the person on the other end of your call will not hear the brass band. They will only hear your voice. Because
happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It happens to me all the time. But, you're walking down the street, you hear a noise, whatever, that noise will not translate because essentially the phone or the AirPods are actually isolating your voice away. So it's the same technology, essentially, that's in the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the Pro, right? Essentially, it's the ability to almost live process that and actually isolate that audio.
Yeah,
we've
already got voice isolation options anyway, but I think the demo that they showed where he was standing in a room with a live band playing basically was absolutely amazing. I don't know if that's powered by AI, but yeah, the voice isolation was particularly impressive. And it is useful, as you mentioned, when you're out and about making a phone call, there's a lot of traffic noise or whatever it may be. It can make all the difference.
Yeah, and obviously you're getting the USB charging option there as well. I think the more expensive version has wireless charging capability as well. Canadian pricing $179 and $249 for the active noise cancelling version. In the US, you'll pay $129 and $179 respectively. And in the UK, $129 and $179 for the active noise cancelling version. So similar pricing, interestingly, in the US and UK, which is kind of new as well. That's not seen that for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's telling us. But it's the AirPods Pro 2 that I think has caught the headlines for a lot of reasons. And that is because of their commitment at Apple to accessibility, frankly, I think, and making their products as accessible as possible and making them as assistive as possible. And this all starts with hearing tests and hearing protection, and actually going further than that, even turning these devices into hearing aids. Let's start with the conversation around protection. So, actually protecting your ears from loud noises.
To help our users minimize their exposure, we're adding hearing protection to AirPods Pro on by default across listening modes. The ear tips help to provide passive noise reduction. Whether you're attending a live show or playing at the show, machine learning on the H2 chip actively reduces louder, more intermittent noise at 48,000 times per second. Hearing protection can help you across a variety of loud environments, preserving the entire dynamic range of what you're listening to.
So that's the hearing protection side of the AirPods Pro 2, which is kind of cool. It goes one step further than that, of course, because it's not, as they've said, it's not just about protection, it's about testing and then helping people, assisting people who are having hearing issues. So let's hear about the hearing test side of this.
To give you insight into your hearing health, we're introducing a clinically validated hearing test with your AirPods Pro and iPhone. It's a simple 5-minute check you can take from the comfort of your own home. All you need to do is tap the screen when you hear a series of tones at different volumes and frequencies. The hearing test builds on learnings from the Apple Hearing Study and was developed using large-scale real-world data. And it was validated against the clinical gold standard of pure tone audiometry. Once you're done, you'll see easy-to-understand results in a personalized hearing profile.
So once again, all these hearing test apps and services that are out there have been pretty much replaced and Sherlocked, I think is the word that is used often in this situation, by Apple once again. So the hearing test is going to be built into the device. So if you have been noticing issues with your hearing, if you feel you're not hearing things as clearly, you can take the test. But then it goes one step further, and with a software update coming later in the year, not a new device, I should add. So in the AirPods Pro 2, if you have them already, they will be able to become clinical hearing aids. Let's hear more about this.
This fall, AirPods Pro will have a clinical-grade, over-the-counter hearing aid feature. We're adding this groundbreaking capability to help more than 1 billion people living with mild to moderate hearing loss. After you take a hearing test, your AirPods Pro are transformed into a personalized hearing aid, boosting the specific sounds you need in real time, like parts of speech or elements within your environment. This will allow you to hear your surroundings better, to help keep you safe and connect you with people nearby. So it's even easier to hear and engage in conversations.
I mean, that is incredible, isn't it? That's such a huge addition to this. And, to actually take these to the next level, to become clinical grade hearing aids, that's immense. It's
so Apple, right? And it isn't just that. It's the entire, again, it's all about the implementation from Apple, the hearing test itself, how that works. And then taking that this next step of actually improving the ranges that you're missing because it knows from that hearing test. It's genius. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is that, these are hearing aids now. I don't know enough about hearing aids to say, because the thing that stood out to me that these are over-the-counter, clinical grade hearing aids. Is that different over the counter? I mean, I'm assuming that there's going to be things that these aren't going to be suitable for the actual other hearing aids may be. So it does make me slightly nervous that people will just now say, just get a pair of these and now you can hear. It may not be the case, but obviously the example that they gave during the event were very impressive. And do you know what? I think it's something I could actually benefit from.
Well, I don't know the answer to the question about how similar these are to medical versus, I mean, the word clinical grade or the phrase clinical grade suggests to me that they are the same.
It
Obviously
does.
have that
I'm
capability.
just not sure. Yeah.
But here's an interesting perspective on this. Someone who I just saw this on Mastodon last night, someone commented that, they have a family member who would never wear hearing aids because of the stigma that goes with it. And they would happily wear their AirPods all the time. So there are people who may never want to wear hearing aids, but would happily walk around with a pair of AirPods on because that is, in quotes, normal, right? So people would wear AirPods all the time, nothing unusual there. And suddenly we're in a position where people who would not use hearing aids, who could benefit from hearing aids, who may be struggling with their hearing as a result of not wearing hearing aids, will now have that device. So I think for some people, this could actually open up a world of hearing back to their lives. And I think that's really valuable.
That is an excellent point. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's the equivalent of us not wanting to pick up a white stick for the longest time.
Yeah.
Apple,
right.
if you could just bring out, an Apple stick, that would be quite handy. Then,
well, do you know, right? So we don't have a lot of time left, and I haven't even touched on the watches yet. But I want to just say very quickly on this, and we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this topic. But I think this has kind of opened up an interesting avenue for me, because look what they're doing with hearing. Imagine the Vision Pro could do the same with sight. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We'll come back to this. But Canadian pricing for these, $329. In the US, you'll pay $249, and in the UK, £229. It's actually cheaper to buy them currently in the UK. But again, if you've got them, this is a software update that will come later in the year, so you don't need to buy a new device. They did not announce new AirPods Pro. They're sticking with AirPods Pro 2. We're moving on to the Apple Watch, because, look, lots to talk about here, but ultimately what we're saying is with the Series 10, it is going to be available in two variants, the 42mm and the 46mm version, so they've made the screen bigger. Interestingly, someone commented last night that the sitting next to the Ultra watch, it is quite large in comparison even to the Ultra, noticeably bigger. I mean, we're talking millimeters to some degree, but,
we're talking screen size, though, not physically.
Screen size, yes.
Yes.
Well, overall, I guess it is bigger, right? Bigger screen, bigger size. They've made the bezel a little bit smaller, but ultimately it is still a bigger device than the Apple Ultra, which is kind of interesting. So 46mm versions, they call it the thinnest Apple Watch. I think it's like 30% thinner than the Series 6. It does, that does sound interesting. I'll be quite intrigued to see what that's like. I'm kind of keen to get hands-on with that. So yes, they're saying it's thinnest ever. It's going to come in aluminium and titanium as well, so you can have it in two different styles. They got rid of stainless steel and they replaced it with titanium instead. And that'll be quite interesting. Improved battery life, 80% charge in 30 minutes.
Nice.
That's pretty good. I mean, I guess if you're wearing this all day, you are going to want to make sure it gets on charge and gets back on your wrist as soon as possible.
You charge it when you're in the shower, and it's fantastic. The other ones aren't too bad for that either, to be fair.
Yeah, that's right. Also, there's some speaker improvements as well. I didn't quite understand this, but essentially they're saying that there's an enhanced speaker system in the Series 10 that will allow for playing audio content like Audible and news stations directly through the watch, which says will be useful for hands-free listening while moving. Who listens to their Apple Watch on the move?
Who doesn't? When I first got my Apple Watch and I couldn't do this, I was so annoyed. I didn't understand why that would be. I think this is a cool feature. Smaller speakers, but apparently louder. So, yeah, I like this.
Okay, I'll go with it.
Okay, sorry. Yes. That to me, that was the main thing of the whole Apple Watch 10, was the ability to play media through the speakers. I think
not the only one. Not the only one, because, of course, there was that big feature which was announced, and it's a new detection sensor that's in there.
Oh, yes.
And this, I think, is huge. And again, another reason why if you want to charge up your watch, you probably want to do it quite quickly, because you want to get that back on your wrist through the night, because they now have sleep apnea detection. Let's listen into more details about this.
To detect sleep apnea, Apple Watch uses the accelerometer to monitor a new metric during sleep called breathing disturbances. You can view your nightly values in the Health app, which can also help you understand the restfulness of your sleep. Every 30 days, Apple Watch will analyze your breathing disturbance data and notify you if it shows consistent signs of moderate to severe sleep apnea. As always, your data is secured in the Health app, which will tell you when sleep apnea may have occurred.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. I think I probably have sleep apnea, so I cannot wait to get one of these watches to tell me that I do. Not only sleep apnea, of course, that's a fantastic feature, but there's a new Vitals app as well going to be on the watch that will allow you to track your health data and essentially bring all your data together and give you sort of information, the real kind of pertinent information up front, which I think is great about heart rate and obviously your sleep and all that. So that's brilliant. Canadian pricing starts at $549 for the aluminium and $999 for titanium. In the US, you'll pay $399 and $699 respectively, and the same in the UK pricing, although in pounds, $399, $699. I've got to mention the Watch Ultra 2 before we go, because it was the most ridiculous announcement ever. The Watch Ultra 2, no new watch, except it comes in black. Hurrah!
Well, you care about colours, Stephen Scott, so you were excited by this.
I must admit, it does sound quite nice, but I'm not paying, was it $10.99 in Canada, US $7.99, in the UK £799. I'm not, I've already got the Ultra Watch 1.
There was a new band as well.
Oh, and a new band, yeah, whatever. Quick mention of the AirPods Max. It gets USB-C, and that's kind of it.
New colours.
And new colours. It's a strange one, really. You're still being asked to pay the same price. In Canada, $779. In the US, $549. And for some reason in the UK, £499.
Oh.
But there you go. Anyway, that's our wrap-up of the Apple event. We will be talking iOS 18 tomorrow. Shelley Brisbane joins us to talk all about the accessibility features broadly across all of the disability categories of the accessibility settings. And Patrick O'Rourke joins us as well to talk all about some of those more mainstream features. That's Double Tap. Coming up tomorrow here on AMI Audio Podcast and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening or watching, however you've done it. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for checking this out. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.